Welcome back. Now, a constitutional obligation and yearly tradition when the nation's first citizen is as a head of state reports on the status of the country. The State of the Nation address unveils the government's multifaceted agenda for the coming year. Now, yesterday, President Geingob delivered his 9th State of the Nation address. Now, to further unpack SONA 2023, I'm joined in studio by Presidential Advisor and Press Secretary, Dr. Alfredo Hengari. Good morning, Doctor, and welcome to GMN.
Good morning. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be here.
Yes, yesterday we were just predicting. Now we know what he has indicated, so we have an opportunity to dive into that a bit.
Exactly.
Yes, okay. Now let's talk about the first thing that I want to share with you is that the issue of effective governance, responsive institution, and an engaged citizen being the backbone to secure any form of peace, social, economic development, social cohesion. What did you make? Did the president's statement include of all these elements? And in a view, if he did, what did you make of that, the way that he delivered those elements within his state address?
Yes, it was the penultimate SONA of President Geingob, one that was consistent with the challenges that we are facing and the opportunities that lie ahead for our nation. Since the president presented the SONA in terms of the 5 pillars of the Harambee Prosperity Plan, unquestionably there was sufficient detail in all the pillars. On effective governance, for example, the president highlighted the importance of strong institutions, of robust processes and systems, and that is the bedrock with which, from which our country can succeed. The president highlighted the importance of the customer service charters, the performance management systems that are being re-engineered through our business processes. So yes, there is a number of important things that were highlighted through that specific pillar. For example, on economic advancement also, we are ramping up our green hydrogen processes. This year, the government will roll out, after conclusion of the agreement with Hyphen, the green hydrogen in the Karas region. On top of that, we discovered oil as a country, and these are all positive aspects to which the president spoke to. And I'm glad to see that even the opposition benches agreed with the president that there was a lot of detail in the SONA, but it was also one that inspired the Namibian people.
Now, let's continue on your response. We go to the fact that, you know, the president in his New Year's address as a head of state declared that this year it will be a year of revival and, you know, affirmed that the nation's action will be taken or will be going through a process of what's called effective governance pillars consisting of accountability. I know the president likes to talk about accountability and transparency equals trust. His formula has been consistent over the years with that, and also that improved performance and service delivery, just to name a few. Let's talk about how the president is trying to ensure that as a head of state and a head of government by nature, because merely the prime minister head of government business, National Assembly, and the ultimate head of government is still president. What is he trying to ensure that there is accountability, especially from government side of view, or that the citizenry have a role in holding government accountable? How does he intend to do that?
The president is an open communicator because he believes strongly that if we communicate transparently and openly with citizens, we are going to build their trust. He has been doing that. When you look at State House, for example, all the meetings of the president are open to the media, unless the guest demand otherwise. And that's a key ingredient of transparency, is the level of openness of your institutions, of officials. And we've seen the president really engaging openly with Namibians. Over the past 8 years, President Geingob has been to all 14 regions of this country, at least on 2 occasions. I'm talking about the town hall meetings, for example, where the president would sit for about 7 hours on average, just to talk to Namibians, to hear from them, to provide feedback about what the government has achieved, but also to listen attentively to some of the challenges that are experienced by ordinary citizens in terms of service delivery. And these are the things that were contained in that SONA to say that this is what we are doing as a government to ensure better service delivery. The President was also candid to say that we have plans, times we have good plans, but the execution remains a challenge. Yes, when you look at, for example, on the operational expenditure side, execution is quite high. The development budget is a bit of a challenge, somewhere in the 70%. So there is a lot of work that needs to be carried on. And the President was quite honest about that, because as long as we have poverty, as long as we have unemployment, it means that the services are not yet delivered optimally. But we should also not forget that as a country, we are coming from a very difficult space. We went through COVID-19, a devastating pandemic, which affected our businesses, which affected our economy. We also went through severe droughts over the past 8 years, recorded to have been the worst in history, a commodity crisis bust. But where we are, and this SONA was a reflection of the year in which we are, the year of revival, where as a country, there is light at the end of the tunnel, the opportunities are there, and we are working on seizing them.
Okay. Now, getting back to the President's address, he reaffirmed government's commitment into strengthening that is processes and systems and institutions to deliver things such as quality service, protections of freedom, and an effective compacting of corruption, improving livelihoods for Namibians. But maybe want you to perhaps tell us, in which areas do you think that the President needs to head into in order for the country to be in a better shape? Yes, we understand the issue of COVID-19. We understand the tight fiscal space that we found ourselves in. We understand the issue of the crisis when it comes to commodity prices, and obviously also that we're not getting the best deals for our raw minerals, COVID-19. But what are the steps that need to be taken for the country to head into a better direction than it is? You know, ideally, as the President always says, it's to move Namibia to a better place than how he found it in terms of leading.
There are a number of things that the President emphasized. First, he spoke broadly about the need for Namibians to continue holding hands, because a stable nation, one in which people work together, is likely to achieve its developmental goals. The President spoke about that. But tangibly also, the President spoke about a number of the initiatives that government is undertaking to ensure that we arrest one of the key challenges of the day, which is youth unemployment. And I mentioned the green hydrogen agenda. I mentioned the discovery of oil, but I also have to mention the importance of agriculture. The President spoke about agriculture at length in the SONA. Green schemes that are being leased out in order to ensure that we become food insecure. But he also highlighted some of the gains of the past year, for example. Some temporary jobs, over 5,000, that have been created in the agricultural sector, with many young people who are employed there. And it's also important to highlight here that with the type of stability that we have, and also what we have launched a few years earlier, right in the middle of COVID, our tourism revival plan, some of these initiatives are bearing fruit. Last year, the figures for tourism were quite encouraging. Tourist arrivals in the country were quite encouraging. And this year looks much better. But what holds all these things together is peace. It's Namibians realizing that we need to work together in order to move in an upward trajectory of development and prosperity. Now,
Maybe perhaps getting a little bit more into detail is an issue that in last year the President obviously announced the official launch of the VIDA Fund. We know that in this budget, this year's budget for expected for 2023-2024, there was no allocation for it, and we understand the background in terms of the VIDA Fund. We see it's about enhancing national resilience and being foresightedness for the future. But would it be okay to say that perhaps maybe to talk to the nation as of to why we should concentrate on the future while the country, for instance, is currently battling with the issue of youth unemployment? Why focus on the future while we've got current mitigating challenges?
Well, the future is quite important because we need to ensure that our stewardship of our natural resources also benefit future generations. And that's why the VIDA Fund is quite innovative in that sense, and it's a demonstration of the care that the president and the government has for future generations. There's no question about it. But at the same time, we are dealing with the current challenges in terms of the programs that we have rolled out to communities. Let me just give you a very good example. When the president announced amnesty for NSFAS loan holders last year, is to allow those young people who have started to work and are struggling to pay those loans to have more money in their pockets so that they can pull through the period that was occasioned by COVID, the economic challenges of the day. The old age pension, for example, which has been increased several times, today it's standing at 1,400. But also when you look broadly at our social protection system, caring for the vulnerable members of our community, and the president spoke about that. So there are a number of things that we are doing quite well to ensure that we protect the present, but also the investments into the future. The amount of spend on education, for example,
20%.
And the president spoke about that as well. And also the investment in teachers, recruiting more teachers, recruiting more police officers, recruiting more officers in the defense force. These are important initiatives that lead to the protection of our country, but also it creates employment opportunities for our young people. The president always challenges young people to seize opportunities in business, in politics, because that has been his life, is to empower young people. So when we say that the president is a champion of the youth agenda of young people, it's demonstrated through the acts.
Now, as we begin to round up our conversation this morning, let's focus on primarily on the issue of youth unemployment and also the opportunities that exist within for the youth, especially with regards to the announcement that the National Correctional Service is busy with the recruitment of over 300 correctional officers, 1,000 members of the police force, and approximately 1,500 members of the Namibian Defence Force, approximately 2,800 people likely to be recruited. And we know the dependency ratio in this country is almost close to 7. For every one person, you're likely to have 7 dependents working. So what is the impact possibility in terms of the recruitment of the 2,800 people?
We do understand the multiplier effect of when one person in a family has a job. And that's the opportunity we are creating through the SONA and the government programs that are being rolled out. There is understanding of that. And there's also understanding of the social programs, and also in terms of their multiplier effect. When an elderly person receives the old age pension at 1,400, they look after a number of people in the household. And when they are two, I think we all agree that the impact of the old age pension and our social protection system broadly has been quite effective in terms of fighting poverty. We also know that the president has been a champion of a conditional income grant, basically converting the food banks, which are benefiting about 11,000 households in Namibia. And when you look at the number of actual individuals who will benefit from such programs, you are looking at upward of 50,000. So there are a number of things that are being done to deal with the challenge of youth unemployment, but also to deal with the question of poverty, which President Geingob, as you may recall, in 2015, identified as one of the key challenges of our time.
Okay. Now, finally, Dr., we are heading to another independence celebration. Some may be indicating that nothing much has changed over the last 33 years down the line. What's your take on this, and why is independence celebration important, and perhaps why should we all focus on the need to celebrate 33 years of independence?
I'm old enough to know what was invented before independence. I'm old to know the type of constraints black people had in this country. I experienced apartheid. So apartheid limited the opportunities of the black majority. We could not be where we are now under apartheid. So when people say that apartheid was better, it's a bit disappointing, if not dishonest, because Namibia today is qualitatively speaking a far better country than the one we inherited in independence. Far better. The opportunities that have been expanded for the black majority in terms of venturing into fields that were not for black people. Upward mobility for a black person meant being a teacher, being, if you are lucky, a medical doctor, or a nurse, or a civil servant. Today, we've expanded opportunities for many Namibians. Also look at the infrastructure. The infrastructure was basically designed to serve a tiny minority, white people. You look at Katutura, where I grew up today, the number of roads that have been expanded, the road network that we have in this country is a result of the investments that we made after independence. This country did not have universities under apartheid. We have them today. This country did not have the type of cohesion that President Geingob is championing. We were divided in Bandustans to think ethnically. That infrastructure was dismantled after independence. So I think there's a reason to celebrate the gains of the past 33 years of independence. But as President Geingob always says, more can also be done. And when people see what has been achieved, they are also optimistic that more can be done. There are countries where people give up hope, they retreat, they don't complain. But when people are complaining, when people are saying, no, but we can do better and we should do better, that's the message of independence.
That's the message of independence. Okay. Now, thank you very much for making time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, that was Dr. Alfredo Hengari, who is the Presidential Advisor as Press Secretary in the Office of the Presidency, talking to us about the 9th State of the Region Address and also giving us reasons as to why we need to celebrate our upcoming 33rd Independence Anniversary that will be held in Otapi in Umsati region next week, Tuesday. Stay tuned. GMN gets to return shortly.